Welcome to my channel. This is CCNA Essentials. This channel aims to provide a comprehensive course on the most essential knowledge required for the CCNA certification. Today, I will introduce spanning tree, related commands, what BPDU packets are, and the states of ports. First, about spanning tree, I have a model with 3 switches connected to each other for the purpose of choosing the shortest path when pinging from PC1 to PC2. So, when this link goes down, it will switch to this path. The purpose of connecting switches in a loop is to increase network redundancy, but it has the drawback of creating an infinite loop. Let me explain this. When PC1 wants to ping a destination with IP 8.8.8.8, and all 3 switches do not know the MAC address of that device to ping, it will create an ARP message, asking, who is 8.8.8.8. This IP corresponds to which MAC address so that it can send the packet out of the port it wants. Because it doesn't know, it broadcasts the packet out of all ports. For example, switch 1 will forward the ARP packet to switch 2 to check if IP 8.8.8.8 is correct, and switch 2 doesn't know where this IP comes from, so it will forward it to switch 3 to do the same, but switch 3 still doesn't know, so it will ask switch 1 again. Of course, switch 1 doesn't know which MAC address corresponds to this IP, so it will continue asking switch 2, creating an infinite loop. This will affect switches, causing them to freeze or lose network connectivity. So, people have created the spanning tree protocol, which is a common standard across different vendors. With this protocol, it blocks one port, so the switch will transmit packets in another direction. Switch 1 will ask switch 2, and if switch 2 doesn't know, it will ask switch 3, and if switch 3 doesn't know, it will automatically drop the packet. In practice, spanning tree protocol is rarely operated exactly like this diagram anymore. In theory, it works fine with this diagram, but in practice, it often causes problems. How does a switch determine which port to shut down to prevent a loop? When switches are interconnected, they generate a packet called BPDU, Bridge Protocol Data Unit, consisting of 2 components, MAC address and priority, known as bridge ID. The switches exchange bridge IDs with each other. The switch with the lowest bridge ID becomes the root switch or root bridge. Once the root bridge is identified, its ports are set to forward data instead of being blocked. For other switches that are not the root, they determine which ports to block and which to forward. Ports on these switches leading to the root switch are set to forward, while the rest are determined based on the bridge ID of each switch. Note, the priority of each switch is calculated as 32768 plus VLAN ID. For example, a switch with VLAN ID 1 will have a priority of 32,769. Regarding command for spanning tree. Here are these commands. With these command, they will show the output. Root switch information. Cost STP for an interface. Port state of each port. Port currently in blocking state. Ports of the root switch are called designated ports, forwarding. For other switches, any port on a switch that is directed toward the root switch is called a root port. Between 2 switches that are not root switches, the port of the switch with a lower bridge ID becomes the designated port. The port of the other switch will be in a blocking state. If a switch has 2 interfaces with the same cost leading to the root switch, then the port that establishes a connection to a neighbor with a lower bridge ID wins, forwarding, while the other port will be blocked.